Have you ever had the feeling that we are living through a rerun? Not a déjà vu, but a systemic loop. A feeling that every time a crisis happens, whether it's a financial crash, a pandemic, or a supply chain collapse, the solution provided by the authorities only seems to accelerate the problem. We are told that the system is learning. We are told that after 2008, the banks became safer. We are told that after the supply chain shocks, the economy became more resilient. We are told that artificial intelligence is here to assist us. But what if the system did learn, but it learned the wrong lesson? We recently fed thousands of pages of economic reports, post-crisis analysis, and sociological trend data into a NotebookLM instance. We asked it to synthesize the behavior of governments and megacorporations over the last 20 years. We didn't ask for a summary, we asked for a psychological profile of the system. The answer it spit back wasn't about incompetence, it wasn't about accidents, it was about optimization. The system learned that crisis is not a bug to be fixed. It is a feature to be exploited. It learned that fragility is profitable, that dependency is better than stability, and that your fear is the most liquid asset on the planet. Today, on Collapse Insider, we are going to decode the 3 fatal lessons the system learned, and why, if you don't understand them, you are destined to be the collateral damage in their next experiment. Let's go back to the scene of the crime, 2008. The narrative is that the banks got greedy, the housing market collapsed, and the government stepped in to save the economy. The lesson should have been, reckless gambling leads to ruin. Risk must have consequences. If you bet the house and lose, you sleep on the street. That is the fundamental law of nature and capitalism, but the system learned the opposite. When the bailouts happened, Wall Street didn't learn caution. They learned that if they gamble big enough, you will pay for their losses, but they will keep the winnings. This is what economists call moral hazard, but let's call it what it really is. Privatized gains, socialized losses. When we analyzed the financial data from 2020 to 2024 via our NotebookLM synthesis, a terrifying pattern emerged. The system realized that money is no longer a store of value. It is a tool of behavior modification. They learned that they can print their way out of reality. When Silicon Valley Bank collapsed in 2023, the reaction speed was instant. They guaranteed the deposits. Why? Because the system learned that pain causes political instability, and the modern system cannot tolerate pain. So, they numb it with liquidity. But here's the catch, and this is what the mainstream news won't tell you. Every time they print money to stop a crash, they are stealing time from your future. They are diluting your labor. The lesson they learned is, we don't need a productive economy, we just need a plausible narrative. They realize that as long as the stock market line goes up, they can ignore the fact that the average person can no longer afford a home. The lesson was that asset prices must never be allowed to fall, even if it means destroying the currency. They are sacrificing the currency to save the collateral. And if you are holding cash, you are the one bleeding out. Now, let's pivot to the technology that dominates your waking hours. The early promise of the internet was the democratization of information. The idea was, if everyone can speak, the truth will rise to the top. The system tried that. It didn't like the result. The system learned that truth is boring. Truth doesn't keep you on the app for 6 hours a day. Truth doesn't sell ads. Nuance doesn't go viral. So what was the lesson? Enragement is engagement. We see this clearly in the dead internet theory discussions trending right now. The algorithms that run YouTube, X, and TikTok were not designed to make you smarter or happier. They were designed quite literally like slot machines. They learned that the best way to extract revenue from a human being is to keep them in a state of low-level anxiety and tribal anger. When we asked the AI model to analyze social media engagement patterns during major global events, it showed that divisive content spread 6 times faster than factual corrections. The system looked at this data and said, "Perfect." It didn't try to fix the toxicity, it optimized for it. The wrong lesson here is that human attention is a resource to be mined, not a garden to be watered. They learned that a polarized society is easier to market to. If I can convince you that your neighbor is your enemy, I can sell you a security system, a political donation, and a bunker. And now, with generative AI entering the chat, this lesson is being turbocharged. We are moving from an era of curated reality to synthetic reality. The system learned that it's cheaper to generate fake content than to employ real creators. It learned that you don't care if the influencer is real, as long as she is pretty. You don't care if the article was written by a human, as long as it confirms your bias. The system learned that we are addicted to the simulation, and it is more than happy to keep the simulation running while the real world burns outside your window. Let's talk about the physical world. The stuff you eat, the car you drive, the chips in your phone. For 40 years, business schools taught one holy grail: efficiency. Just-in-time manufacturing. Zero inventory. Squeeze every cent out of the supply chain. Then 2020 happened. The world stopped, and we realized that our entire civilization was built on a razor's edge. We had no masks, no chips, no lumber. Why? Because just in time means just too late when a crisis hits. The logical lesson should have been, we need resilience, we need redundancy, we need to bring manufacturing back home, we need to store extra grain, extra fuel, extra parts. We need slack in the system. Did the system learn that? Absolutely not. Look at the corporate earnings calls from 2024 and 2025. The lesson they learned was, automation is the only safety. They didn't decide to make the supply chain more robust for humans. They decided to remove the humans from the supply chain entirely. Automation didn't arrive to replace people. It arrived to remove uncertainty. Humans introduce variance. Variance breaks forecasts. Systems optimize for predictability, not resilience. This is why we see the massive push for AI in the workplace. It's not just about productivity, it's about predictability. The system learned that if they can reduce you to a data point, they can manage you. But if you are a complex human being with needs and unpredictability, you are a liability. The result? A hyper-efficient economy that is incredibly fragile. A system that can deliver a package to your door in 2 hours, but collapses if a single underwater cable is cut. They traded our security for their speed. This brings us to the final and perhaps most dangerous lesson the system learned. It's a concept that has been floating around the World Economic Forum and elite circles for years, but now it's hitting your bank account. The lesson is, ownership is obsolete. Rent-seeking is eternal. Historically, the goal of capitalism was to own things. You work hard, you buy a house, you buy a car, you own your land. That was the American dream, the European dream, the global dream. But the system realized that if you own something, you only pay for it once. That's bad for the quarterly revenue chart. The system learned that if they can turn every aspect of your life into a subscription service, they own you forever. They learned this from the software industry. Remember when you used to buy a CD-ROM of Windows or Photoshop? You paid once, and you used it for 10 years. Now, you pay every month until you die. If you stop paying, the software stops working. Now apply that lesson to housing. Apply it to heated seats in your car. Apply it to your food delivery. The corporate real estate giants buying up single-family homes aren't doing it to provide housing. They are doing it to trap a generation in perpetual tenancy. If your landlord is a faceless algorithm that can evict you with a keystroke, you are compliant. They learned that access is more profitable than ownership. But what they didn't tell you is that access can be revoked. Ownership gives you freedom. Access gives you convenience until the price goes up or your social credit goes down. The system didn't decide that ownership was immoral. It decided that ownership was inefficient. Owned things can't be repriced every month. Access can. That shift wasn't ideological, it was mathematical. So, where does this leave us? The system has learned to prioritize profit over people, control over freedom, and addiction over well-being. It has learned that it can print money to hide failure, use algorithms to hack your dopamine, and turn your life into a rental agreement. These are the wrong lessons for humanity, but they are the right lessons for a parasitic system that wants to sustain itself at your expense. But here is the good news. The system is not a god. It is a machine. And machines have blind spots. The system assumes you will stay asleep. It assumes you will keep scrolling, keep renting, and keep believing the official inflation numbers. It is betting that you are too distracted to notice the walls closing in. The glitch in the matrix is you waking up. The system didn't become fragile by accident. It became fragile by learning what worked. And the most dangerous lesson a system can learn is that consequences can always be postponed. Stability doesn't mean safety. Sometimes it only means the bill hasn't arrived yet.